This is my very first stream live on Twitch. This is exciting. Okay, hold on. I want to make sure everything's working. Okay, it looks like it is. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of jump into it right now. A lot of you guys may or may not know who I am. My name's Brandon Zemp. I published a book back in November called the Satoshi Sequence. Some of you may or may not have heard of that. I wanted to discuss blockchain in 2018 just a little bit and kind of explain how things are going to change, what's going on, and yeah, let's just kind of dive into it, go from there. It's kind of fun. All right, so who am I? I graduated with my bachelor's degree in neuroscience back in May of 2017, a year ago. Then while I was trying to figure out whether or not I wanted to go to medical school, I decided to dive into blockchain a little bit more after making some investments and playing with the technology a little bit. So in June, I went to Germany, did a lot of cool stuff there, went to a few conferences, looked at crypto economics and whatnot, went to Brazil in August. I'll get to some of that in a minute. Then in October, I looked at the ability to make money mining cryptocurrency, something I didn't really know anything about until I jumped into it. So I launched my first mining operation in October of last year. I also went ahead and published my first book on blockchain, which is something that was in the works for half a year, almost a year, but had no timing in terms of when I wanted to put it out. So I kind of let that go in November, published that, which was perfect timing. So if you follow crypto, you know that it really took off in December. So timing wise, it couldn't have been any better. Then also in November, I went to Panama, consulted with some people, talked about blockchain there. I launched a new website and a consulting firm called BlockHash. Definitely go check that out. It's block-hash.io. And then also in February, I went to Colombia, explored Bitcoin a little bit down there. It's very interesting. And most recently went to Austin, Texas. That was really cool. There was a whole bunch of pioneers in the blockchain industry that were there working on stuff as well. So let me dive into kind of some of this stuff right now so you kind of understand a little bit more why I went there. But regarding my experience as well, again, I run a mining operation already, and I have a second one that's in development right now. I own a blockchain consulting firm, like I said just a few seconds ago. Regarding Germany, attended a blockchain expo in Berlin. A lot of cool people were there, including Ripple, so it was great to kind of get my feet wet back then a year ago. Then I went to Florianopolis in Brazil with a bunch of investors, and I got to meet with the founder of Exosphere, which is pushing a new line of education, which I think is really important. You should definitely check them out. I also met with the founder of Fort Galton Crypt Academy, which is in Chile, and they're doing a lot of cool stuff. And Chile is a very capitalistic country now, and it's doing very well. It's growing very quickly in terms of blockchain and infrastructure and all that. And then on my Panama trip, I explored crypto economics a little bit more in Central America, talked with a lot of people that were trying to get out of Venezuela, that were trying to get away from certain hardship. They were trying to find ways to send their families money. And there was a lot of people that liked Bitcoin, a lot of people that liked what crypto could do and that were very positive on blockchain. So that was a really interesting experience as well. And then I went to Medellin, Colombia, did the same thing, talked a lot about crypto economics with some people, met some attorneys, met a lot of locals, promoted my book a little bit, sat down with a few people that were very interested in crypto down there as well. And I think that their government is moving in that direction very slowly, and I think the people are going to push it in that direction. And then I went to Austin, Texas this past March, I believe. I got to meet a ton of really cool people that I didn't know before, and it really helped me dive even more into blockchain in terms of the development and where is it going and what are the best projects. So I did have a chance to meet with Paul Snow, who is the CEO of Factum, and they're doing a lot in commercial industry and getting private blockchain set up for businesses and all that. They're going to be a great project. It's something you should look at in more detail. I met with Rob, who's the co-founder of Zencash. I mine Zencash. I hold a lot of Zencash. I think it's a better form of ZK Snarks, Zcash, that kind of blockchain tech. And I think it's going to do very well in the future as an investment, but I think as a blockchain it's going to do even more. So it's got a lot of different functionalities compared to Zcash. So for example, there's anonymous publishing, anonymous messaging, on top of anonymous value transfer. So Zencash is doing a lot of cool stuff. I keep an eye on them. Also got to meet with some other companies that are building around crypto as well, like Skipty, which is kind of like a Craigslist / Airbnb, but for like all your stuff. So I got to meet with Pablo, a couple other people of Skipty. That was pretty cool. Got to dive into that. Most recently, I went to Vancouver, BC, up in Canada, and this one was really interesting. And this one really is the reason why I'm doing this presentation. There were so many great, smart people that aren't knowledgeable enough about crypto and blockchain, but that see the potential. Guys like Doug Casey, who's a renowned speculator and international guy, Marin Katusa, Rick Rule, Sprott, James Rickards, who's a fantastic economist. If you don't know anything about him, definitely look him up. Chris Gaffney, TIAA Bank, Andrew Sheckman of Miles Franklin, Tika Tawari of the Palm Beach Confidential. He was really cool. He's probably the only guy there that knows enough about crypto to actually legitimately make a prediction. But all of these guys, a lot of these guys don't know anything about crypto, and then some of them, like Tika, know quite a bit about crypto compared to most people. And their general consensus was that this bear market is basically over. That we're moving into this next bull market cycle. And I think a lot of them were pretty excited about it. One of the biggest takeaways I got from Vancouver, and that really got my attention, was if we look at the reason why we keep calling crypto a bubble, and it's no different than every bubble in history, and there have been hundreds of bubbles in all different kinds of markets. If you look at the .com bubble, which is probably the one that resembles crypto the most, had a very similar pop between 95 and 01. So if you look at the chart on the left, you can see how it peaked, and then after the .com bubble burst, it tanked pretty hard, but ever since then it began climbing very steadily to where it is today, and it's much, much higher than where that previous bubble was. If you look at the crypto bubble that we had in December and January, which was pretty big, the chart is very, very similar. This one's a little bit more zoomed in, but we're in the very, very early stages of this thing hitting a very long-term bull market. And that should be very, very exciting for people that are actually holding it as an investment and that are interested in the technology itself. And I cannot emphasize how big of an opportunity it's going to be to get in right now, because it's never going to come back to these prices ever again. My book that I published, The Satoshi Sequence, back in November of 2017, some people bought it, some people didn't, and some people saw a lot of gains in December because it came out 1 month before that huge boom. And I told a lot of people to read it. I told a lot of people to follow some suggestions that I gave them. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I'm going to walk you through it, some of the highlights of my book, why you should have bought it, why you should have read it, and what my predictions are for the rest of 2018. And I'm going to explain that in detail I'm not going to BS you. We're going to look at just three things. We're going to look at what the Satoshi sequence is, why I called it that in the first place. Basically, there are three different generations of blockchain technology that exist today. Then we're going to talk about the best blockchain projects, in my opinion, that you should definitely take into consideration. And then we're going to look at my predictions for 2018 for the entire market in general. So generation one was Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first version of blockchain. It was developed by Satoshi Nakamoto. We all know that. And it was born during the 2008 recession when we had the banking collapse and the government had to go in and bail out all the banks. A lot of people were scared. A lot of people started to think about money and what gives it value for the first time. It was kind of interesting. And then people started realizing that they don't have control over their perfect little bubble in the world. They don't have control over their money and what they do with it, and maybe something's wrong. And out of this, Satoshi Nakamoto, he, she, them, it, decided to create a solution. And that solution is Bitcoin. And the catalyst for that was fear, uncertainty, and doubt in the banking system itself. So the change from our centralized banking society to Bitcoin started in 2008 when he proposed this and created Bitcoin. Beyond Bitcoin, beyond generation one, a lot of developers, when they started working on Bitcoin and getting into this, they realized that there was a lot of potential for the technology that makes Bitcoin work, that makes Bitcoin operate. That's going to be generation two. Generation two is Ethereum. So Ethereum was proposed in 2013 by Vitalik Buterin, and it went live and became a reality in 2015, which was only 3 years ago. And in 3 years, it has had a lot of progress. It's had a lot of little bubbles, a lot of ups and a lot of downs. The swings have been incredible. And the amount of money it's garnered is also incredible. And honestly, it kicked off a whole new market. Bitcoin itself was a technology, it was a solution, but Ethereum created this crypto market, created the potential for it, created the potential for blockchain. And we saw this in 2016 with the DAO hack, the decentralized autonomous organization, where no one was in control and everyone was a participant, a group of people in an organization, proving through smart contracts that this is a viable future solution to a lot of things that we deal with today. Unfortunately, it got hacked. 3.6 million Ether, $70 million at the time was stolen, and it created a pretty bad taste in everyone's mouth at the time. But it proved that it could work. It also proved that it's going to take some time, which means that there's a lot of opportunity to invest and a lot of opportunity for competition. So that DAO hack was probably the best thing that could have ever happened in retrospect. By summer last year, 2017, we had the first ICO boom. I think we saw this back in May through June. We saw a lot of different cryptos actually come onto the scene. We saw Bitcoin lose almost half of its market dominance. Ethereum jumped up and almost surpassed Bitcoin, the only time it's ever done that. And it was because all these ICOs, initial coin offerings, were being launched on the Ethereum blockchain, on the Ethereum technology platform. And that eventually led to scams, that led to the fact that it's the Old West and it's uncharted waters. A lot of people lost a lot of money, a lot of people got ripped off, but at the same time, a lot of things were born during that time. And this led to the possibility that, hey, Ethereum doesn't have to be responsible for everything either. The blockchain can be far, far more diverse. And we saw this at the end of 2017, at the beginning of 2018, when the futures markets came out for Bitcoin. The problem and why we saw this huge dip this spring was because of the futures markets. There was a million other things that happened, but the futures markets were a very big part of that. Why? Because Bitcoin was slowly climbing back into dominance, almost 68% market dominance by the time December rolled around. By the time that rolled around, a lot of money came out of Bitcoin and went into these other crypto projects. All these former ICOs, all these other blockchains, really kicking off the idea of what I'm going to talk about next. And when all that money came out, a lot of people that got into the futures market, they knew Bitcoin was already super high. It was already $17,000, $20,000. So they decided to short the market. Eventually what that was going to do at some point, which it has now, is oversell Bitcoin and completely drain the market. So that's what happened. One of the biggest reasons for what happened this entire spring, why everything went into such a long, boring bear market. But a lot of other blockchains got valued and got the opportunity to grow, and we'll get into those as well. This eventually led to what we have now. We're sitting on top of Gen 3, which is the next protocol of blockchain, the next level of blockchain, and it's going to solve the right Gen 3 blockchain, or blockchains are going to solve three key issues at least. They're going to solve scalability. They're going to have a higher TPS for mass adoption. They need to be able to compete with legacy markets like Visa and MasterCard. They need to compete with the banks, the SWIFT system. They need to be quick. They need to be fast. So scalability is going to be something that they're going to try and solve. Sustainability is another one. With mining today, and I know this hands-on, you use way too much power, and it's driving prices up, it's hurting economies, it's bad for the environment in a way. It's also a huge drag on memory production. I know that a lot of companies like NVIDIA have had issues getting more GPUs out, have had issues competing because miners like myself have been going out and buying all the computers with the highest amount of memory or with the best graphics processing power. It's driving up prices in those markets. And sustainability wise, it's not good right now. So either we fix mining, we make mining better, which is a possibility. Moore's law is set to end, but as Moore's law does continue to progress and as technology progresses, we're going to get better miners that have very low wattage intake and that have very high hash rates. And we're going to see that with the Z9 mini miners and the Z9 industrial miners for Equihash that are coming out right now. And those will be out late August, early September, and that's going to really flood the market and also cause the price to go up for a number of reasons, which I'll get into in a different presentation because that gets really intense and complicated for most people, and it's just besides the point. So scalability is going to be important. Sustainability in terms of power, memory, technology, and all of that. Because if we don't figure that out for mining, for proof of work, we're going to move to something else like proof of stake, proof of capacity, something else that will allow us to correct that system and make blockchain more viable. The third one is interoperability. We need, with all these blockchains out there, one of two things has to happen. Either they need to work together or some of them are going to completely die off. And I'm kind of on both sides of this. I think that 1,600 different cryptocurrencies out there is way too much. A lot of them are going to die off, probably 80% of them at least. But there's also going to be the opportunity for a lot of these core blockchain projects to intertwine and work with each other and build off of their skills, or build off of their own strengths and cover up their weaknesses. And some of them may even merge into better blockchains. That's another possibility. We might see the ending of forks and we'll see things actually start to merge together and get bigger development teams and bigger growth a lot quicker and higher TPS ratings and more sustainability. So interoperability is also going to be very important. And for Gen 3, there's a lot of contenders for who's going to really kick it off, but there's a number of them. My top 5, Gen 3 products for 2018, and I'll explain why, are Cardano, Neo, Stellar Lumens, Tron, and Dash. So let's look at Cardano first. Charles Hoskinson, who is the former co-founder of Ethereum, who's leading the Ethereum Classic team, who runs Input Output Hong Kong. It's the largest developer group for blockchain in the world right now, and very, very good at it. Helped start Cardano, the Cardano Foundation, and they're going to solve all these problems with scalability, sustainability, and interoperability. So I like what they're doing. They're built on Haskell code. They're very, very secure. They're very, very fast, and they're very young. And being led by Charles Hoskinson, he's a very smart guy. I don't know what comparison to make to the real world, but Charles Hoskinson's a very smart guy. I think Cardano's going to move in the right direction. Their virtual machine should be out or coming out soon. They're going to move to staking, which is going to be a huge opportunity to prove that it works, a huge use case opportunity. And I like the direction they're going. Bought in at 2 cents. I told people to buy in as well. They didn't buy at 2 cents. It went to $1.30. I think Cardano's going a lot higher than $1.30. I think it's very likely that Cardano hits $5 in the near future. I think it's very likely Cardano becomes the first blockchain to reach $1 trillion market cap on its own. Will that happen this year? Probably not. Will it happen in a few years? Maybe. It's something you guys have to watch, and it's very affordable to invest in, and you need to get into it now. There's just no reason. If you have $1, you can buy 5 Cardano. You need to get into it. One way or another, you're going to learn. Second is Neo. Asia, compared to Western society, is a different beast altogether. And I think China is a different beast than Asian society altogether as well. And the way that China has become a very socialist, very almost closed off and controlling government, I think they're going to be looking for a blockchain project like Neo, and I know they're working with Neo to integrate their society. And Neo's already launching ICOs that have very quickly, like Ontology, moved to their own blockchains, but to do so that they could help Neo scale and so that they can get a web integrated into China, blockchain tech. And basically what China's doing right now is they're creating regulations, they're creating a whole new protocol layer for the internet in their country, and they're going to do this with blockchain. They're going to do it with Neo, they're going to do it with Ontology, and a number of other things. And it's very, very smart for them to do that. I think it's very smart to get into Neo. Do I agree with China and everything they do? Of course not. But I think this will be good for Neo. I think that certain regulations in China and certain bans on ICOs and whatnot will be lifted in time. It'll take some time, but definitely get into Neo. It's going to be a great project. If you hold your Neo, you actually get paid a dividend. So if you hold enough Neo in a Neon wallet, which is their native wallet, you get paid in gas. So if you just want to collect a dividend, go buy a whole bunch of Neo, you'll get paid residual income that way. It's another reason to hold it. And gas is another topic entirely. I think Neo's dividend is going to be worth a lot of money as well because it helps power the blockchain. Third is Stellar Lumens. I'm a big fan of Ripple. I know a lot of people aren't, and I know a lot of people that aren't are crypto anarchists. In some ways, I'm a crypto anarchist. However, I don't think there's anything wrong with a centralized blockchain. That's like saying that there's something completely wrong with Google and Facebook as companies. And I don't think that's fair to say. I don't necessarily like everything they do. I don't agree with everything they do, which is why I'm a huge fan and proponent of blockchain. But centralized businesses and authorities and governments and organizations have been around for thousands of years. So I don't think you can say Ripple's terrible just for that reason alone. And it's doing some amazing stuff. Other than Ripple, I think Stellar Lumens is an incredible project, and they're working very closely with IBM. Jed and Caleb worked for Ripple and left Ripple to come to Stellar Lumens. I think what Stellar is doing on the node level, on the computers that help facilitate these transactions, not mining necessarily, but the ones that store the blockchain, I think they're doing some really cool stuff with that technology. And I think they're going to, for payment processing, they're going to change the game just like Ripple is, but on a more institutional basis. And I think that'll be very important to have that competition with Ripple, because it's going to push them both very high. And Stellar's done very, very well as of lately. I would highly recommend that you buy some of that. It's also super cheap. It's probably like 30 cents or less right now. So there's no excuse not to go buy it. Fourth is Tron. Some would consider this very controversial because it's very young. It just launched its mainnet. It's been accused of plagiarism. It's been accused of being a scam in the past. But what I like about Tron is Justin Sun. Justin Sun's I believe he's a UPenn graduate. He's a disciple of Jack Ma of Alibaba. He was in Forbes 30 under 30 for tech in Asia. He's a very smart guy, very ambitious young person too. And I think that's what you need in crypto. And I think he's going to be very good for Tron's a blockchain, and they want to attack the entertainment industry. And they've already gone out and bought BitTorrent, which used to have like a quarter of all internet traffic in the world at one point. I think what he's doing is going in the right direction. I think with everything he's doing for Tron is going to see tremendous growth, continue to see tremendous growth. There's no reason that Tron shouldn't hit $1 in the future, that Tron couldn't go a little bit higher than that. It's all going to depend on how many transactions per second can Tron handle? How much volume can Tron handle? Can Tron really get people to use the blockchain that they have? I think they will. I think that they're in the top 10 for a reason, and they're going to be very, very competitive to Ethereum, to Cardano, to Neo, to EOS, which I think is a disaster. Definitely check out Tron. It's a bit more speculative, but it's worth taking a closer look at. I think people are overlooking it right now. Fifth is Dash. I like Dash a lot because I think it's a glorified Bitcoin in a lot of ways. I think it solves a lot of Bitcoin's issues in terms of what Bitcoin wanted to be. And Bitcoin's going to continue to get upgrades and get faster and faster, and maybe Bitcoin solves its problems. That'd be fantastic. I love Bitcoin. But I think Dash is a better solution for payments. I think Dash is something that can be used every single day. Dash is getting into a lot of POS systems, getting into marijuana, a huge catalyst for both marijuana and Bitcoin. So I highly suggest you take a close look at Dash. And just from an investment perspective, it's down a ton. It's at like 250 right now. It's been as high as like 12, 1400, 1600, something like that. I have to check the charts in. But Dash's investment is fantastic. Dash's technology is fantastic. They're super fast. I highly recommend you take a closer look at it. They're going to do some very, very cool stuff. Going back to my book, after talking about that stuff, what did my book do? What did you guys miss? In my book, I talked about the Venezuelan trial, back to oil, before it came out. It came out 4 or 5 months after I wrote about it. Book. And I don't think a lot of you guys realize that. You need to go back and read my book. I also talked about India's ban on crypto ended up following China. There's been countries like the US who cracked hard with regulations, but I think India's move towards digital. I think they're are going to want blockchain integrated in their country. So I think the average age is like 25. I think they save like 40% of money. There's a lot of people there. They're all running around their cell phones. Country that should be a first world country now in a lot of ways, and that have a lot of monetary use. I think that that's going to change very soon. Same with China. I think like having a grasp on their country. I think like having a grasp on their financial systems. Once they do that, blockchain's popping that comes off. For China, you look Neo again with India. You got to once I figure out what that is, but all the stream blockchains in the world work into it. Work in China, so we'll define China. So Cardano, so Neo, basically. So that's all something to take a closer look at. The other thing, ruble. Vladimir Putin is very interesting stuff. The Russian government